Hello and welcome to another training video. Now, they say that every day is a school day, and I learned something new the other day, so I'm going to share it with you. Now, we all know that in Excel, we can maybe sometimes not want people to realize that it's Excel at their first glance. So when we're putting a report in front of somebody, we don't need the ribbons and toolbars and the formula bar and all this stuff visible. So we could make it look a little bit less like Excel. So the way I'm going to do that is, firstly, on the view ribbon, I'm going to turn off the grid lines. And then next, I might turn off the formula bar and even turn off the headings, which are my row and column headers. And then I could even double click there to hide the ribbons. But there's actually another stage we could take it to. And this is called the display full screen mode. Now, it used to be, and actually if you look in Microsoft's help, it still shows you that it is here in the view, and there's a full screen option in workbook views. You can quite clearly see there is no option there for full screen. So I'm going to show you how you can do all of that lot in a single click. And what we're going to do is, first of all, we're going to take a look at the VBA. So if I bring up my Visual Basic, I have this single command here, application, the application being Excel, display full screen equals true. If I execute that command, it instantly goes into full screen mode. Now you'll notice it's left on the what they call the headers, so I'd have to go back in and turn off the headers if I wanted people not to know at all that this was Excel. So the way to get back out of that is press escape. I could now go back in here, untick headings, and then in my Visual Basic again, I'll just execute that code. And now this doesn't really look like Excel anymore. Now, why would we do this instead of just saving it as a PDF and sending someone the PDF? Well, actually, some of these cells are still active. So I could still type something into a cell and it'll behave just like Excel does. But what I can also do is I can lock down other cells. So you'll notice that I've locked down these cells here by using protection. So I can't overwrite or even select the formulas. All the user or I can select is these numbers here, which I've allowed to be changeable. None of the formulas, none of my report results can be changed because the sheet is protected. And on the new version of 365, you'll notice that there's the little padlock icon on the sheet to show you that the sheet itself is locked. Okay, but how is this useful? How can you actually make this work without having to go into the VBA window every single time? Well, let's have a look at that. Instead of having it written in a window here, the immediate window, let's actually take that. I'm going to copy that and I'm going to write it into a module, and the module is going to appear on my personal XLSB. So not on any of these. I'm going to go make a new module, and in that module I'm going to say sub FS for full screen, and I'm simply going to paste in the line that I had down here. So application display full screen equals true. That's all I'm going to put in there. Now that's going to be saved within my personal macro workbook. Therefore I can do this, I can execute that code on any file that I have open. So I can now close that down. And the way I'm going to execute it is to add a button up here. I'm going to add a macro, and it's FS, and I'm going to add it, and I'm straight away going to modify it so that I've got an icon, and let's just use that one there, which is like a full screen icon, and I'm going to call it full screen. I click OK. OK again. I now have a new icon there, and as soon as I click on that icon, it goes into full screen mode. And that will work on any file that I have open. Now the other thing to note about this is if I now save that file, so if I do Control S to save that file, when I close it, my machine reverts back to not being in full screen mode. So if I make a new workbook, the new workbook appears and it's not in full screen mode. Now remember that the mode for that file that I saved was full screen when I saved it. So my view was full screen when I saved it. So if I go into File and open that file, it should normally go back into the view that I saved it in, but it doesn't. So I would have to actually run that every time I wanted it to go into full screen. Now this is slightly tricky because what it means is that I'd have to set some code to run automatically on opening the workbook for the user to actually get it in full screen mode. So let's have a look at how we do that. So I'm going to go into the Visual Basic again. Eventually. And you'll notice that I have this code here. I'm going to copy that. And I'm going to go back to this workbook here, and I'm going to set the code to run on a workbook property. So I double click there, and now rather than general, I'm going to make it a workbook event, and it is on the workbook opening. So on the workbook opening, I'm automatically going to run that code. Now I'm going to do another one as well. So I'm going to come down here and I'm going to say, actually, I want another workbook one, and I want this one to be before close. So when somebody leaves the workbook, I want this to run just before they close it, and I'm going to reset it to false. Now this will mean that if it did for some reason not reset back to the default mode, it wouldn't lock up somebody's machine in full screen mode. Now it's easy enough to get out of there, you just have to press escape, but some people might not know that. Okay, so I've got that in there now. I'm now going to save this file, and I'm now going to close it. Now when I go to open that file again, immediately on opening, it goes into full screen mode. If I now close it, it goes out of full screen mode just before it closes it. Okay, I know this will be useful for some people. Very, very simple code to write. Easy to add it as a button on your quick access toolbar if you've saved it in personal. Easy enough to add it onto the file itself for anybody else who's using it externally. Okay, I hope that's been useful to someone. If it has, don't forget to like and subscribe down below. And once more, thank you for listening.